the first saint of Canada, now part of our province. Blessed Andre now is Saint Andre. And I was just thinking about the fidelity of God. When Andre was born, the nursemaid baptized him right away because they didn't think he'd make it. He died when he was 91. And all along the way, he faced difficulties from his very birth. When his father died when he was 9. His mother died when he was a teenager, and he was left to find the help of relatives who took in he and his 10 brothers and sisters. And finally decided, after doing different odd jobs, not really excelling at any of them, never stepped into a classroom of a school. Could barely write his name when the priest of his parish suggested, you should be a religious. And he put in his recommendation, has no schooling, but is a saint. I'm sending you a saint. So, the Brothers of the Holy Cross took a risk. And the novice master was kind of pulling his hair out saying, what do we do with him? You know, I don't know what your novice masters were saying about you guys. But they kept Andre because we know one thing, he'll pray for the rest of us. He'll pray for the rest of us. And so he made it in. He made it into the congregation of the Holy Cross by his prayerfulness. After a while, they still didn't know what to do with him, so they made him a porter. Let him answer the door. You know, can't break anything or do anything wrong by doing that. Remember, the Brothers of the Holy Cross run universities, places like Notre Dame. You know, and it was interesting on a commentary. One of the priests made a comment. It's interesting that we PhDs and educated men, and the first saint among us was the guy who answered the door. God has a good sense of humor in that sense. But Andre did what he was told, and when he was finished his job, went and visited the sick. This is like in 1910. Most of the people in the room weren't born, I don't think. 1910. And people said he just likes to visit the poor because he likes to use the car. You know, I guess it was a treat back then. So he liked to use the car. And he just said, let them talk. I like to visit the sick. And you should like to visit the sick too. It's good for the sick to see healthy people. That's what he said. So he kept doing that. And after a while, you know, there was some good things that would happen. The sick enjoyed his company and enjoyed praying with them, and good things started to happen. People who were sick got well. And so more people started coming to the door of the college to see Andre, and people at the college, remember academics, started saying, this brother's causing a lot of trouble here because all these people want to come to visit him and ask him for stuff, and sick people come and ask him to be healed, and you know, saints attract a lot of oddballs, you know. Well, welcome to the real world. And so what they did, he asked if he could set up a shrine. So the superior says, good idea. Set up a shrine. Well, first they needed the property. So Blessed Andre, I think we can attribute this to him. He went out and he took little St. Joseph medals and he put them all around the property that he wanted. And it was soon theirs. And now the St. Joseph medals and statues buried all across North America, thanks to Blessed Andre's example. Soon got the property. When he wanted to build the first chapel, he basically got it from the people who he helped and visited. At one point, they wanted to expand the chapel, make it the basilica that we know now, and he prayed for a contractor. And a sick man came to him who happened to be a contractor. And he said, do you love St. Joseph? Don't worry about that cancer, because he wants to use you to build this chapel. And he was cured. And guess what? He built the chapel cheap. At a certain point, though, they did have money problems, and so they didn't have a roof. So Andre said, put St. Joseph in the middle, and he's going to get wet. And if he wants a roof, he's going to have to pay for it. I like his spirit, I really do. And eventually the chapel was built. And the brothers, again, trying to figure out what are we going to do with this Andre, sent him a priest. They sent him a priest who was losing his eyesight and really going blind. At a certain point, the priest came to Andre and said, brother, I'm so sorry because I can't do anything anymore. My sight is gone. He said, don't worry. you'll be able to see tomorrow. And he was. All of it he attributed to St. Joseph. St. Joseph. We know today, when you go to the oratory there are hundreds and hundreds of crutches. They say over a 27-year span, there were 10,000 cures. That's a cure a day for 27 years. And there were 1 million people who came to his funeral. He could barely read. They didn't know what to do with him. He almost died at his birth, and yet God was able to work so many miracles in his life. Perseverance. And knowing that it was not about him, but it was about Jesus. And the miracles happened through the passion of Christ, and through the hands of St. Joseph, whom he was so devoted to. 91 years he lived, and 91 years he offered himself to Christ. A wonderful witness for us today as we celebrate a North American male saint. They're not that common. We need to know that, men. We're still waiting for the first USA male-born saint. We got a few imports. But let's pray that it could be one of us, and that God can use the gifts that we have. If God can use the meager gifts that Andre brought, and he brought meager gifts. He had one gift, well, I can say two. He had the gift of simple obedience and joyfulness. He had a natural joy about him that just made life easy. And difficulties came, but he always was able to be happy.